Hello and welcome to this quick webinar of how to use the Blueback Project Tracker. In this episode we're going to look at the web dashboard and how you can use it to get some quick wins with your Petrel data management. So let's just take a look at that. Here we have the tracker dashboard inside of the web. So the dashboard is designed to give you a quick overview into your last scan status and the projects being created, etc. So the first thing to see is the bottom left where we have the tracker timeline, and here you can get some information about when the last scan was run, and if you mouse over these little green icons here you can see when the last successful scan was run, so Friday today just before recording the webinar. The next thing to show is the Petrel versions graph here, which can just give you an overview of the different Petrel versions that you have in your environment. And one thing to note is you can click on these segments here, and this will take you to the second module of the tracker, which is the projects with a filter applied. So it's just a quick way of visualizing how many projects belong to a particular Petrel version. The next item here is the measurements, where we can compare our total number of projects with some of the versions we supported in the latest release, and you can just see how those are increasing or decreasing over time. In this sub-tab here we also have our project tags, so when I scan I assign some names to the different groups of data that I have, and again I could, for example, click on my reference projects tag here and reveal all the projects that belong to those tags, for example. Finally, in the top left we have a quick summary of projects that contain a lot of local data, so that's data that's not properly referenced. Then in here we have 100 newest projects. Again, we can click on that to show some details about the project, like when it was created, who by, where it was saved, etc. And then we have also the 100 last modified. So it's just really designed as a quick summary to your tracker and get a quick status on how things have been developing. If we move into the next tab here, which is the projects, we can start to get some more information about the projects that we have. So firstly we get an overview of the project names here, the path they're stored at, etc., what version of Petrel, and if it's a reference project or not. Any of these columns here we can move around by dragging and dropping. We can also select rows like so, right click and copy to clipboard, etc. And we can also drag and drop any of these columns into this group selector. So if I drop the Petrel version, it groups any objects which have the same Petrel version here. So you can quickly get, for example, a list of projects, in my case, that are, say, Petrel 2011 that need to be upgraded to Petrel 2012. In this view here we can also change it to expose a number of different sets of information about the projects. So one of the first things we can look at is the history, which tells you when the project was created, who by, who now owns it, and if it was a copy of another project or not. And again, here we could group by, say, the user, and we'll find the various users of the Petrel projects. Here we also have a interesting information collected by the tracker, which is the scan status, which can give some details about any projects that failed to scan and can indicate what kind of error it encountered. All my projects scanned successfully, so I don't have any problems I need to worry about. In the view we can also get a quick information on the units of a project, and here we get information on the coordinate reference system and then all the measurement units used in that particular project, and again we could group by CRS and identify ones that may be using a incorrect CRS. The next part of the project's view to show is the references, which is really the sort of bed and butter of the tracker. And what this does is it shows how the data is shared between the projects and how it's synchronized against the reference projects. So if I filter here by reference seismic cubes, you can see all the projects which have reference data in them and what the synchronized status of those data are. So up here we have these legend for these traffic light symbols. So you can see the projects that have a lot of local data, i.e. non-referenced, and then you can see the projects which have reference data and what state it's in. If we look at something like well references, we get something a bit more meaningful. So people use the reference projects a lot more for wells. So here we can see, for example, this project has 24 wells that are equal with a reference project, and if we click on that, we can see those 24 wells, and they're all equal with the reference project. An example here where we have some wells that are newer, we can click on them and we can see that these wells have been updated in this project but not sync their changes back to the reference project. As I showed, you can click on any of these number here and that'll take you to the next tab down, which is the data tab, which shows you information about the specific data items. So I can click again on these 6 wells and you can then expand each data item and see a little bit about the history of a specific data item. In this case it's wells, and you can also see its Petrel GUID and some other information about when it was created, etc. In this data tab we can also QC the data across many projects. So I could, for example, specify, say, data type equal to well and data name contains A10 and then press apply. And what this does is it will show me all occurrences of this A10 well, and that will be able to tell you where you've got it properly referenced across many projects, and then where you may have a user who's loaded it by themselves or has somehow gotten it from a different source, which may need some attention. So in this scenario here we can see our A10 well. It's imported from another reference project. It has a Petrel GUID, and you can see that for most part all these A10 wells have a consistent Petrel ID called the GUID, and they also have a consistent hash code, which is a tracker calculation of the size and position of a well. So we can see, for the most part, we can see where all these A10 wells are good, and we can quickly identify where they're bad. If we just look at another data type, for example, like model, take the name filter off here, we can also get some information about our models, and in which case they have maybe a bit more complicated history, but you can at least see the history of a model, for example, in the tracker. And this can help you to compare projects with similar data to see where you might be missing some changes. The next tab down is this project tree, which just exposes the projects kind of in a Windows file system type view. And the idea here is you can identify folders which may contain a lot of older projects. So here I have, for example, a folder with projects without a CRS, and here maybe some projects that haven't been modified in over a year. So you can quickly browse folders on the system and see if you can make any quick wins by cleaning up folder by folder rather than project by project. And you can also just collect some metrics on the specific folders here. So this would allow you to build a kind of quick asset by asset check on the Petrel projects. Next we have the measurements, which lets you see how some changes have happened over time. So each time we scan, we take some measurements of, say for example, number of projects and count up the Petrel versions, and then we can see how they are changing over time. So you can say, for example, if you roll out a new version of Petrel, you want to see that the older versions are decreasing and the newer ones are increasing. And this can help you monitor that and report back on how well a successful deployment has been. In these measurements, we can also look at growth in file sizes over time, looking at the project folders and the seismic data growth. And we can also look at the growth of individual data in, say, total number of wells versus unique wells. So this is a measurement of how much you're using the reference project tool, and we can see in my data set I have some separation between the total number of wells and unique wells, which is a measure of how much I use the reference project. So the idea is to have the lowest number possible for your unique wells, and instead use copies of wells via the reference project tool. The next tab down is the seismic bulk files, which gives you some more detailed information on all the seismic in your Petrel projects. So you can see where all the projects are getting their seismic from, where it's stored here in a path, and how large it is and what type of storage format it has, etc. So you can see, for example, where you have some disk space savings to be done on cleaning up some seismic data, or checking that it's on a recommended storage format. The next module down is also looking at seismic, but it's adding a bit more context to it. It's the seismic duplicates, and here we can see where seismic is being duplicated across the system. So in this case here, there's 3 copies of this intercept cube here. It's all identical size, but it's stored in 3 different locations, and indeed inside of the Petrel project folder in each case. So I know that by realizing one of these cubes out from the project and relinking the other 2 projects, I can clean up that seismic and make the same version available to each user. Next we have the network graph, where you can see copies of projects against each other. So here we can identify the original in dark blue and then subsequent copies in light blue. You can just mouse over to get a quick overview of the details, like for example the owner of each project, and by holding Control you can also click on 2 projects and then use this icon here, compare selected projects. And what this tool allows you to do is to compare the data items between the 2 projects and see which has newer data or older data, and what's different. So here you can see that we have a list of unique data, and that project 1 has a lot of interpretation seismic cubes and also wells that aren't in project 2, so we know that project 1 is a bit more comprehensive than project 2. The final part of this networks graph is to see reference projects, where we can see this parent-child relationship. So I can see, for example, my UTM-31 reference project here, and identify all the projects that have taken some data from there. So it's just a simple way of showing you which projects have used it, and if we click on this reference data here, we can go and browse the data in that project and see how it's connected with the other projects. So just going back to my earlier comment about identifying some quick wins with the tracker using the web, I'm now going to show you how you can bring a consolidation of all these views here into Excel and make some quick reports. So if I just open up Excel like so, I can say import some data from SQL Server, and my tracker database is stored on this host, and I just choose my tracker database and say project ref data tags and press finish and press OK. So here we get a single spreadsheet with basically a consolidation of all those different views I showed earlier. So we get our user IDs, our tags, our disk space footprint of the projects, CRS, units, and then counts of the data inside of it. So here you can identify lots of different quick wins with the tracker, like for example, copied copied projects that you can easily identify using something like the conditional formatting. You can see where people have copied the same project around. You can also quickly filter by last modified time and identify old projects, and you can also filter by things like sort projects that have lots of local wells and not many reference wells, which is a measure of not being able to synchronize. For some more information on what you can do with Excel, there's another video on the YouTube you can check out. And again, if you have any questions, please just let us know. Thanks.